All right, so dealing with 2-point perspective now, just like we did with 1-point perspective, we started with our horizon line. Make sure you are pressing lightly because a portion of this will be erased because some of the objects we will put both above and below the horizon line. And if it interjects with that horizon line, then you would erase the horizon line because we're building actual forms and they would cover up the sky. So if you're thinking about looking at a city, you understand that there's a horizon line where the sky meets the ground, but if you've got a bunch of buildings overlapping, then you can't physically see the horizon line anymore, or trees, or mountains, or anything for that matter, or people, or cars. All right, so now what we're going to do, as always, our vanishing points, no matter how many there are going to be on the horizon line. In this case, 2. We've already done 1-point perspective, so now we're going to do 2-point perspective. I've put a dot almost to the furthest out area here. Okay, so then we have a vanishing point on the left-hand side. We have a vanishing point on the right-hand side. So let's go ahead and start with a line that is through the horizon line itself, both above and below. This line can technically be however long you want it, but let's shoot for maybe a 1, 2, 3, I don't know, 3-4 inch line somewhere in the middle of your paper. Okay. Whenever we start with building a building in 2-point perspective or something like that, whatever it could be in 2-point perspective, you always start with the middle line. Remember, this is the middle line that I talked about on the building. If our light source was coming from the right-hand side, then the light would be on the right of this building, and then also on the left of this building would be the shadowed area. So once again, whenever you're working with 2-point perspective, you are starting with the middle line. In 1-point perspective, we drew the box first, or whatever the shape was, and then took all those corners to the vanishing point, the one vanishing point. This time, you start with the middle and then develop the rest of your form after that. So then you would take the topmost part of the line you created and draw that to your vanishing point on either side, pressing lightly because a portion of this will be erased, just like we did with 1-point perspective. Anytime the line is above the horizon line, you're going down towards the vanishing point. So I'm going to take my 1 point to both vanishing points. Okay. Then I'm going to go on the bottom half and go up towards my vanishing points. Once again, pressing lightly because I don't know how big my building is going to be quite yet. Okay. Now you can make your building however big you want to. We are going to add windows to it so we can understand things inside the structure itself. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a line here. Just like 1-point perspective, you mimic the original line. Okay, remember if we had a horizontal line, we drew a mimicking horizontal line however far into the distance. If we had a vertical line, we did the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and make my building. You can do it however you want, but I'm going to make my building a little bit bigger on the left-hand side. Then I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase a few lines. So I'm going to erase the one that goes to the vanishing point. That no longer is part of my building. On both sides. And then I also need to erase the actual horizon line itself that is behind my building because we're going to make it a form and it's not transparent. So therefore, you will no longer be able to see the horizon line behind my, we'll call it an office building. I don't know. It can be whatever I want. And there you have something in 2-point perspective. Now, it might look a little simplistic, but that's because we haven't added values to show the light side, the dark side. We haven't added any details or textures and things like that inside the building that also go to the vanishing points. So it looks pretty simplistic right now, but that is 2-point perspective with something above and below the horizon lines. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing, one object above and one below. So let's go ahead and start with below, because it might make a little bit more sense to you if we're staying with the building trend. So now I'm going to start with another line. You always start with the middle line. So there's a portion of my building on this side and a portion of building on that side. Topmost part of that line goes to the vanishing point. The further down, the more drastic the line. The closer, once again, to the vanishing point, or the horizon line, I mean, which also includes the vanishing points, the less drastic the angle. Okay, now just like this one, we need to figure out where our building ends. So we'll go ahead and mimic that same vertical line, shift my ruler out or my straight edge, understand how big I want my object. And then notice how I didn't take my lines all the way to the vanishing point because I knew I was going to erase a portion of them. It's just less erasing you have to do, which speeds up time and less worrying about craftsmanship because our paper is staying nice and clean. Now, whenever something is below the horizon line and it's an object like this, we're going to physically see the top, or in this case, the roof. Okay? Now, if it was above the horizon line, which we will do, then you would see the underside of whatever that is. But in this case, we're going to see the rooftop. So now you have a point right here and a point right here. Okay? And then there's this just open gapped area, and we need to close that off. So the point on the right hand side needs to get closed off, and that goes left to the vanishing point here. So everything is still lining up with the vanishing point. So this right side goes to the left, and then the left side goes to the right. So how I would do that is, once again, with my straight edge, whatever you're using, you're going to take your line and go, and once again, you don't have to take it all the way there because we know it's not going to be that big, but make sure it's long enough that it will be able to intersect with this guy here. So then this guy here goes to this vanishing point, and you can just go ahead and stop right where it meets that other line, which is right there. Erase extra lines that I don't need anymore. And there you have an item in 2-point perspective that is fully below the horizon line. So that says that our eyesight is looking down on the object. Okay, same thing basically goes for above the horizon line, which we'll go ahead and do that. We'll zip through this one pretty quick because it's the exact same concept, just reversed. So I start with my middle line, take my highest point down to the vanishing point, both times I'm going down to the vanishing point because my object is fully above the horizon line. Mimic that vertical line. Erase my extra lines that I no longer need anymore. Okay, once again, now this guy, we saw the rooftop. If you're thinking of this as a building, this guy, we don't see the underside, which would be if it were a building, it would be a floating building because it's not grounded, because anything that is grounded on the physical earth, if you will, would need to be below the horizon line. So if this were to be a building, it would be a floating building. But just for the purposes of understanding perspective, we will do one above and one below and one through the middle. Okay. Once again, you're going to close the box off. You're going to take that corner, and those are going to go to opposite vanishing points. This left dot will go to the right vanishing point. This right dot will go to the left vanishing. Did I say that right? Left to right, right to left. All my directions. Okay, you don't have to draw all the way to it. You can stop a little bit short because it's going to probably stop somewhere around here. No need to draw all the way because that's just more erasing, and then you'd interject your other object that you've already got drawn. This time you can just go ahead and stop right where it intersects because there's no need to go any further because you know that's where it stops. And then you can erase that, and then you have your interjecting point there. Okay, so once again, you have an object that is both above and below the horizon line. This is most likely, these two are most likely what you see in everyday life. If you're on a rooftop looking at other buildings down below, then you would see the kind of rooftop here. If you're in an airplane, you would see the top of the roofs. If you're just standing on a sidewalk or something like that, then you're most likely going to see this in everyday life of the buildings. Rarely would you ever see a floating building, but it is 2021 and anything's possible at this point. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about how other portions of the object are in perspective. So let's go ahead and add some windows to this guy, the middle guy. Just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to go a little heavy-handed on my lines just so you can see what I'm working with. But you always want to make sure you are pressing lightly so you can erase. We're using our HB pencil, so it's not too dark and not too light, but yet still pressing lightly enough to where we can erase everything. But once again, just for a demonstration, I want you guys to be able to see this a little bit better. Okay. Now, all the things inside the building go to the perspective points as well. Okay, so everything on this side of the building, for the most part, for what we're talking about right now, is going to go to this vanishing point. There are times if you want things to look three-dimensional, which I can show you, you would take it to the other vanishing point, similar to how we took the opposite side to the opposite vanishing point, but we'll get there. And then everything on this side would go to this vanishing point. So if I were to add windows, we'll say I'll have my windows start here and here. When things get further away from us, they get smaller. So our eyesight is like right here, looking at the middle of the building in 2-point perspective. So that means things closer to us, which would, for this side, be the left-hand side, those are going to be bigger of whatever they are. In this case, we're going to make windows, and then they would get smaller. So this building, if you were looking at this building straight on, it would just be a perfect rectangle. The same height from the bottom of here to the top of here is the same height from here to here. But once again, just like those railroad tracks in 1-point perspective, the railroad tracks never get smaller technically in real life, but due to perspective and the way we see life, then it does. And same thing with the trees. This tree all the way back here is probably the same height as this tree closer to us, but since it's further away, it looks smaller. Okay, so now we've got our windows. Now we can connect at the same angle going to the vanishing point that top left to bottom right angle when we're above the horizon line. Okay, then same thing down here. I'm going to add a little bit of space at the bottom so I can add some doors. Or we can make this a parking garage and I can add like a entry for the cars. Once again, I'm pressing light enough so I can erase what I don't need anymore. Okay, now I've got this box inside this box, if you will. Still going down to the vanishing point because it is above the horizon line, going up towards the vanishing point because it's below, but this angle is less drastic than this one because it's closer to that horizon line. Okay, and then we can start to add our windows. Now this is pretty easy to do now. All you have to do is make sure your straight edge stays exactly on the vanishing point. So you can draw this line here, keep it there, rotate, understand how big your windows need to be, go down. Okay, notice how I'm starting to flatten out my ruler or my straight edge because I'm getting closer to the horizon line. Now I'm starting to go up towards the horizon line, and vanishing point. And then this will be my last one. So all I was doing, simply enough, was just rotating my ruler, staying exactly on that vanishing point. Okay, and then you can make, I don't know, you could do like every other, you can make it like bricks. Maybe these aren't windows, but they're bricks. And I'm just going to do in every other kind of sequence. But what I'm just trying to show you is that things can look a lot more difficult than they actually are to draw if you just follow the rules of life, perspective, and art. Then so many students ask me like, oh my gosh, how hard is that to draw? And I just tell them like, if you just follow exactly what's going on and use the rules that you know, I don't think anything's really hard to draw. So there you have, maybe they're windows, maybe they're bricks. I don't know, you could like double it up, and then this is where you could add the beam between the windows. Obviously I would use a ruler, but just for demonstration purposes, and busting through it pretty quick. Draw those in there. Okay, then if you were to shade in your building, you would shade in the inside of these too. Obviously, if I was looking at a real building and trying to mimic exactly what it looks like, then I would follow that. But right now I'm just kind of making things up. All right, so let's make this a parking garage. Okay, so I'm gonna go in. Let's say I want to measure it. Maybe go in. Let's go. Okay, so let's go straight up. We want to be parallel with our line already. Straight up. Okay. Go to the vanishing point. Okay, so now what we would do, if we want to make this look three-dimensional, we could then take this line to the vanishing point here and stop a little short. Go straight down, mimic that edge there. Connect this at the corner, and we could erase this so the cars can come on in. We would then take this corner to the vanishing point on the other end, and we can create this line here. And then, I don't know, we could have a sidewalk. The sidewalk would flow with the vanishing point as well. And then when you have your little lines here, those would all flow with the vanishing point. Then you have, whenever there's a corner of the sidewalk, it has that one piece there. And we'll say that goes there. These would all, well, that's not right. I need to go to the vanishing point. So that would go to the vanishing point. And then if we wanted our sidewalk to look elevated off the ground, we could draw a straight line there. And that would go to the vanishing point. And then this would go straight down, straight down. And then we'll kind of make the curb. I don't know, I'm just throwing things together right now. Okay, then I don't know. This could be the go to the vanishing point here for an arrow, and this would curl, and go to the vanishing point. Here's your street. These lines here for the separation of the road would go to this vanishing point. And then you could draw a car that would be in perspective as well. And then you have your open garage here for them to drive into. I don't know. So you see how I just kind of whipped that together real quick, understanding that sidewalk here is going to the vanishing point. All the lines on the road are going to the vanishing point. The opposite sides are going to the opposite vanishing point. So these lines here, opposite, would go to that vanishing point. These would go to that vanishing point. So it would be like vanishing point there, vanishing point here. Maybe you have something on the roof, like a building for the door for somebody to come out of. You would just draw the middle of that. That would go to the vanishing point there. That would go to the vanishing point there. This could shoot straight down, straight down. Then you have a door. Somebody needs to go through the door. So then that would go to the vanishing point here. You have the door there. Now maybe you have like a little antenna. I don't know. Maybe you have a water tower. The water tower wouldn't really be in perspective because it's round. Got your cylinder. We said our light source was on this side, so then the shadow will be on that side. Shadow on this side. This would be dark because it's the inside and there's dark shadow going on in there. I could throw together a city together pretty quick. Okay, maybe this is the rooftop. I have a door here. We would take that to the vanishing point. The door would kind of be in 1 point perspective because it's on one side of the building. Get your door there. Maybe there's a billboard on this guy. And then you would take that to the vanishing points. Straight up, vanishing point, opposite vanishing point if you saw the three-dimensionality of the billboard. And then whenever you write words in 2 point perspective, you need to follow the vanishing point as well. So if we have a word, say this is our billboard, just drawing it bigger so you can see it. Vanishing point here, so this would be the middle, vanishing point, go that way, straight down, vanishing point, connect these. This would be now your box in perspective. But what I'm getting at is anytime you write words in perspective, you need to follow the lines. So if I were to write a word inside this, I would still go to my vanishing point and I would draw the guidelines of where my word is going to go. Okay, and then this will be the top of every letter here, and this will be the bottom of every letter here. So, I don't know, let's just write art. So the A is going to stop and go at an angle at the top here towards the vanishing point. Then I'm just going to draw my angle line of whatever that is, but they're going to stop at the bottom of that line going to the vanishing point. Go to the vanishing point, vanishing, vanishing. The vertical line is perfectly vertical for the R. Once again, stop at the top of this line and the bottom of that line. Rotate towards that. T would follow this full top line here. Vertical, vertical, vanishing, vanishing, vertical, vertical, and you're already going to the vanishing with that. Okay, and then my A is the biggest letter, and then they progressively get smaller because they're going towards the vanishing point, and then this is technically closer to us. So then those letters are going down. If I drew letters on here, they'd be going up. A still being the biggest because it's still closer to us, and then progressively getting smaller as things get closer to that vanishing point. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we have our building below the horizon line created, our building above the horizon line created, our building both below and above, and then make sure to add some details to it so I can see that you understand the detailed portion as well. Add some windows, maybe some doors, and then I also want you to shade it, understanding where your light source is coming from. Just real quick and briefly. These don't have to be amazing, perfect, beautiful works of art, but I want you to pick a light source and then figure out how the values work, where the darker side is, the lighter side. So if my light source is coming down, I don't know, maybe I have that lip vanishing. So now it looks like I have the edge of my rooftop here. Yes, you may. I don't know. I'm just playing. All right, so once again, we already learned 1 point perspective with going into the distance. Now we have 2 vanishing points on the 1 horizon line. We did above, below, both above and below. So go ahead and make sure you have those 3 buildings and then add highlights and shadows to them, understanding where your light source is coming from. Your light source could be on the right, it could be on the left, it could be in the middle. And then go ahead and add some more details, whatever it may be, inside your buildings to show me that you understand how everything is always going to the vanishing point, especially if it's a perfectly straight line. If it's a more organic shape, such as this water tower that I put together real quick, those don't really need to go to the vanishing point because it is an organic shape, rounded, and therefore doesn't really kind of follow that too much. Okay, and then perspective, perspective. Every single one of these is easy to draw because they're all going to the vanishing points. Maybe, I don't know, you want to throw some trees in there, mountain, some water. Building my own little city. And things would then get smaller the further they are away. Closer they are to us, and the bigger they are. All right, so go ahead and make sure you got your 3 buildings, some shading of understanding where your light source is coming from and how that works, and then add some things on the inside to showcase details on your buildings. And these can be whatever buildings you want. If you want to follow exactly what I did, that's perfectly fine too. It's all up to you.